Okay, hello and welcome to the MSDynamicsWorld.com Spring 2015 CRM webcast series. I'm Jason Gumpert, and joining us for today's session on Dynamics CRM is consultant and MVP Jukka Niiranen. Jukka is with Digital Illustrated in Finland, and most of you probably know him from his popular blog as well as presentations and other activities he takes on in the Dynamics CRM community. Jukka is also a returning speaker for us. He's done some great work in the past, and he has a really interesting approach to exploring the latest CRM capabilities I think you're all going to really enjoy today. I'd also like to take just a moment to recognize our CRM sponsors and thank them for their support of MSDynamicsWorld.com. They are Marketo, PowerObjects, and Scribe Software. So as we get started, I want to add that we invite you to add your feedback and ask questions today during the presentation. Please use the Q&A tab or Q&A block that you'll see to the right of the slides in the webcast session here to ask your questions during or after the event. Jukka will be planning to make time to answer questions as he goes. So without further delay, please allow me to welcome Jukka Niiranen.
Okay, thank you, Jason, and thank you all for joining the session today. And as mentioned, it's going to be a topic focusing on CRM customization, and especially from the non-developer perspective. And we'll be focusing on particularly the sales process today, but we'll be exploring many of the new features and areas available in the latest version of Dynamics CRM 2015 today. And if we think about the key message that I want to convey in this presentation, it is that you don't really have to be a .NET developer to actually build some pretty cool whole new features for your Dynamics CRM solutions. So there's so many options out there today that you probably are not even aware of unless you've been spending more time digging around the latest process automation features and business logic, let's say, customization extension points there. So most of the things that we'll be demonstrating today will be about CRM 2015, but a lot of this does still apply to also the previous version of 2013. So I'll try and also then highlight these requirements, version requirements, so as we go through these different examples. But so my main goal really today is to provide you with some ideas about how to optimize the CRM lead and opportunity management features in particular in your own projects, and kind of showing you how far you can then plan to be going without involving an actual developer into your CRM customization efforts. And that really means that the target audience today is people who are familiar with the configuration and customization tools available in Dynamics CRM. So you should have done at least some, let's say, data model customization or and done something around about how to, let's say, add new entities, and you should understand a bit about what workflows are, and maybe even have reviewed a bit about what kind of extensions the 2013 and 15 releases have brought into the toolkit available for the system customizer. But regardless of how experienced or skilled you are, then these real-life examples should provide you some, at least, food for thought about how to dig deeper into these capabilities. Still a few words about me. So Jason already did a great intro there, but so in short, my name is Jukka Niiranen, and I work as a Dynamics CRM consultant in Helsinki, Finland. Our company is called Digital Illustrated, so we're a fairly small 25 people company focused on Microsoft technologies like SharePoint and CRM, and myself, I've been working with Dynamics CRM for well, over 10 years now. So I've been starting from the customer side as a project manager, and then moved on to being a consultant for all the customers that we do work with at Digital Illustrated. And as mentioned, I do have a blog that I try to keep posting regularly some content about what I discover with Dynamics CRM there. So the new URL is survivingcrm.com, and you can also see then my Twitter handle there, which is the place where I usually share quite a lot of the new stuff that I encounter when working with Dynamics CRM, all the news and tips and tricks and so forth. And yeah, so I've been awarded the Microsoft MVP Award 2013, and it's been a great honor for me to join the group of existing MVPs there to share knowledge with them and like also get further ideas about how we can then better serve the Dynamics CRM user community. And my personal focus really is in all the content that I produce and kind of solutions that I deliver to our customers. I have a sort of, I tend to look at things from the end user perspective quite a lot. So solution usability and in general, the efficiency of information work are kind of topics that are very close to my heart. So that's what I usually try to then bring out also in the Dynamics CRM context when we explore the how to optimally configure solutions so that they are easy and fun to use and deliver the maximum benefit for the end users. But so in general, what is this then, the perspective in more detail, what does it then mean to be a non-developer, so a person who doesn't really write code and to be working with a platform like Dynamics CRM? First of all, I have to say that if I look at the history, so during the past 10 years from CRM version 3.0 all the way to the current 2015 release, then it's safe to say that the configuration and customization tools available in the Dynamics CRM graphical user interface have come a really long way. So that also means that in general, I'd say that in most projects, the ratio of custom code versus the configuration work is now then decreasing. So an ever-increasing share of the work is done without writing any line of code there to achieve the required functionality for the CRM solution. And but what this then means at the same time is that as we get more and more of these sort of ready-to-use tools available in the platform itself, in the customization graphical user interface, it means that you also then have to be able to creatively combine these different tools in the right way. So, for example, in the area of process automation, there are now already several overlapping features to some extent in the platform as it has evolved through the different versions. And really, I've discovered that that's usually the biggest sort of learning point that you as a customizer or consultant should be focusing on to like identify what are the right tools for the right job and how to then also build sort of strings of different features that deliver the actual solution, the actual feature that the end users will see. So in this webcast, I will then demonstrate a few scenarios where I'm combining quite a large number of different tools like workflows and business rules and BPF and these kind of things to actually build a new kind of feature. And so trying to then show that what you can, why it is important that you don't only sort of like look at it from the perspective of the documentation that Microsoft might be releasing on the product, because that's usually quite focused on covering a single feature, how to use business rules, for example. So really the biggest benefits that you can, or biggest impact you can make is by combining these tools in a way that then creates a sort of in a way, almost a whole new application in some scenarios. But so the scenarios that we'll then be exploring today, they will be about the sales process as promised in the session title. So I built this kind of a three scenarios that present a very logical flow from a sales process perspective. So we'll start by looking at the lead qualification process, and then we'll be moving on to the managing the open opportunity revenue estimations, and finally then taking a look at how to then get a better understanding about how the sales pipeline is evolving as these opportunities are managed and entered there in CRM. And so in the first scenario, I'll be looking at how we could then streamline the data entry for leads that are related to existing accounts and contacts, and also then how to convert leads or qualify them without creating a new opportunity. The second scenario is then about how we could replace the standard data entry process for sort of managing the detailed components, the cost components of an opportunity. So how to use custom fields there instead of the standard opportunity product line items. So I'll be then looking at the calculation options that are now available in the 2015 version of CRM for making this happen. And in the final scenario, the pipeline development, I'll then look at how we could actually capture some historical data about the number and revenue of open opportunities per sales stage, and how to then make get some snapshots about the history and show a bit of a trend line there about how our sales pipeline is doing in general. So, and in these scenarios, I'll then be building different types of new functionality via the customization tools offered by the platform. And in the first scenario, I'll be focusing more on the client side. So I'll be doing what I like to call a more responsive user interface. So meaning something that the user will definitely see there in real time how things work differently than they do with the standard product. So I'll be using the Quick View Forms feature that's already available in version 13, as well as the real-time workflows, also familiar from the earlier versions, and then the new extension to the business process flow feature, which is the branching option that's been made available in the version 15 recently. Then in the second scenario, I'll be doing some live calculation examples. So I'll be taking advantage of the new calculated fields from 2015 version, combined with then some business rule functionality that's already that was introduced in version 13. And in the final scenario about the pipeline development scenario, I'll then be taking a look at the Rollup fields and combine them with kind of a well, features that have always been there in a way, so workflows and custom entities, but in a kind of a sort of a novel way that produces a result that it's not necessarily a typical use case for workflows as such. And just practically, so I'll try and leave time for a couple of questions there in between those scenarios. So I do have got a lot of material to cover here, and for that reason, I want to emphasize that you will get all these slides, as well as also then the recording of the session will be available in YouTube in a few days as Jason makes it available. And I'll also then be publishing articles on my own blog that will contain all the details that you will be seeing here today, so you don't need to really take notes about the live session here if you want to just sit back and enjoy and look at what's going on the screen right there. But so now it's time then for us to jump into the first scenario, which is about lead qualification. And let's start with a kind of a problem description here. If you've been using an earlier version of Dynamics CRM 2011 or version 4.0 and so on, then you'll probably remember that in the earlier versions, it was possible to qualify lead records into an account or contact record only. But in 2013, then Microsoft made this change in their product together when they introduced the new business process flow concept, so the graphical kind of process stages there in the UI. And that meant that ever since that feature was added, there was no way for you to qualify leads without always creating a new open opportunity into the sales pipeline. And even though that's probably, in most cases, that's what you really want to do. I mean, leads are often used for sort of qualifying whether something should end up in the actual sales pipeline as an opportunity, but there's still plenty of scenarios where actually it would be preferable to not take a lead directly into an opportunity, but rather to just take it into a prospect account, for example. And things like, for example, you could be just getting, for example, webinar registrations via some API or web forms that are just about some existing customer accounts or prospects or regarding an existing opportunity that you already have there. So you wouldn't want to create a brand new lead from the record, but that's a feature that is currently a pain point in the product because you cannot just configure it by setting an option in the CRM product itself. And if you look at it from a UI perspective, so it used to be like this. So when you qualified a lead in CRM 2011, then you were, after clicking the qualify button, you were presented with this lead conversion dialog window. And there you had lots of options to choose from. So you were able to just tick the boxes that I want to qualify this lead as a new account and contact, but don't create a new opportunity record. And of course, then one of the previous pain points here was that this involved a high number of new pop-up windows being generated because of the fact how the navigation worked in the old CRM version. So it wasn't really a beautiful experience, but it was still quite powerful in a way, and many people came to rely on this ability of like selecting, do I want to create opportunity or not when I qualify leads from our open leads list there. So then in 2013, Microsoft just made this announcement, or they published a knowledge base article saying that the convert lead dialog box no longer appears during the lead qualification in Dynamics CRM Online. And basically the article was stating that, well, actually this functionality is considered by design. So it's not a flaw in the product, it's just a change that we made there. And from now on, you will always get then opportunities from your qualified leads, the end. So, and there's been lots of discussion on the user forums about this feature, and I mean, not everybody is happy with the sort of reduction of options there in the product. And if you look at how it works today, then the standard features, how you would be working with a lead record in CRM 2015 today. So here we have an example record of Iris. She's an influencer, so she's an architect, and she actually works for a customer account that already exists in CRM, and it's not meant to be a new opportunity record to be generated from this directly. But since we also want to make use Iris as a contact in our CRM, have her as an influencer there in our sales process, then once we go to click on the qualify button, then yeah, we get the text there that's saying that by clicking this, it will create a new opportunity with an account or a contact using information from this lead. And that's the only option you have there if you want to then, if you don't want to deactivate this as a disqualified lead and have to then manually create Iris. So if we click on the qualify button, then actually we'll be just taken directly onto the opportunity form. No dialogues, no questions asked, and it's a beautiful streamlined process that takes us with the BPF from one entity to another. But the problem really is that if this is now not meant to be an opportunity, then we should then instruct users to delete or deactivate these records and clean up the sort of unwanted mess that's created by not giving us the option to just qualify the lead as a new contact record. So that's kind of the problem setting that I then started to think about how to resolve this without doing any custom code extensions. And the solution I've come up here is that we can actually, with the current version, deliver two new features there to relieve the pain here. So the first is that we can restore the ability to qualify a lead as an influencer and not create a new opportunity record. And in addition to that, we can also then easily add a feature there that will allow us to associate this qualified lead with an existing opportunity record. So for example, if Iris there in the example was working in a company that's already in our sales pipeline with another opportunity, then we can actually easily connect Iris's contact record with that opportunity as an influencer and then keep enriching the data in CRM via these custom processes. So the components that I'll be using here in showing this example will be, as mentioned, the branching version of the business process flow, then a real-time workflow, and also I'll be using then on the UI level for this kind of responsive behavior, I'll be using business rules and the quick view forms features. So a combination of 4 different customization tools that will then deliver this sort of restore a feature that used to be in CRM, but now recreated in the 2015 style. So the first thing we have to do here is to actually modify the business process flow. And as we know, in 2015, we now have the option to actually branch the process into different variations based on what's been the selection in a previous stage of the process there. So what we need to do is to take the standard lead to opportunity sales process and modify it by making it a branching process. And the design here is that we will actually add a new stage into the beginning. So there's going to be an identify stage before these standard qualify and develop and propose stages in the sales process. And we'll also then add a new option set field for the lead entity that will allow us to then determine that what is the branch that we should be then following. So we'll add a lead type field there, and that will have two options that users can choose from. So the first one will be the kind of standard process, the prospect, so that will create an opportunity, but then we'll add the option 2 there, which is the influencer path. So by choosing that branch, there will not be an unnecessary opportunity created as a result of the lead qualification action. And we will then need to also recreate these stages into each of these the business process flow branches, because unfortunately you cannot move around the existing stages. So we'll need to then add those these qualify and develop and the other stages back into the process after we add the branch into this BPF. So the way that we do it in the UI would be that the user interface is now quite different from the 2013 version of the BPF editor. So we now have the options there in the UI for adding a branch. So once we would click on the below this new custom, or once we added the new identify stage in the beginning, then after that we have the option to click add branch, and that will then introduce us these conditions that we can use for saying that in this scenario, if the lead type field has been filled with a value of influencer, no opportunity, then we will actually proceed with this the create influencer stage and not the qualify stage that we otherwise would be going through if we want to follow the standard path there. So that's how you would configure it in the BPF editor. And the second thing we need to do here is that there's a built-in feature in CRM 2013 and onwards that whenever you click the qualify button in the lead form in the UI, then that will always create a new opportunity no matter what you do. So there is no supported way, as far as I know, to disable the creation. So there isn't an API call that we could interfere with there to stop the process from taking place. But what I've discovered is that if we just change the lead record status field into qualified on a via server-side processes instead of the UI, then actually that's not the same action that's being called there. So that will only just change the status of the lead there, but the creation of a new opportunity will not take place. So the way that we can then leverage this feature is that we can add a new two-option field there on the lead entity called qualify influencer. So a bit field that we can then click there, use that in the BPF stage, and we will then use that as a way to trigger our custom workflow. And actually in this workflow, we will then perform the status change. So we will set the lead to be then qualified and perform any other actions necessary there on for the record. So the scenario actually about the workflow still, so what kind of conditions we then have to use in the workflow would be that we would of course have to see for ourselves then if this lead is associated with an existing account or contact, because we are now kind of replacing the built-in functionality with our custom workflow process. So that's what the process would be otherwise doing by default. We now have to do all these steps in our own workflow instead. So what that means that we will have to create the new contact records, for example, if they are not linked to an existing contact in the lead, and also then if we would like to link this opportunity with an existing, the lead with an existing opportunity, then actually we need to also add one new relationship between these entities that would then signify that, okay, this lead is regarding this existing opportunity. So we need to have a lookup field there on the lead form that allows us then to connect with this existing opportunity. And then the final step would, of course, be then to change the status to qualified, so close the lead as something that you don't edit anymore. So the actual logic is then described here, so it's pretty much what I've said there, and as mentioned, you will get these slides if you want to look at the details. So we'll basically just trigger the workflow to start from the new bit field, so the qualify influencer field when that's set to yes, and then we'll check that is it a existing account or not. If yes, we'll create new records. If no, we'll just then link them to the lead records and perform that business logic ourselves that CRM would otherwise be then performing for us. And continuing with the same workflow process there, so if we then want to link it to the, say that this is a new influencer for an existing opportunity, then we should also take care of adding the new connection record there, which is the stakeholder information that CRM would then otherwise automatically be adding into the system as a result of the clicking on the standard qualify button. And the final stage there is just updating the lead status to be qualified, so that, as mentioned, will prevent the unnecessary creation of the new opportunity record taking place. Now then, continuing still further with the same scenario. So what about then the UI level? So when we are linking the leads to existing accounts or contacts, then one problem there is with the standard feature that you can do both. So you can link it to an existing account, and you can also enter the account name and address there on the lead form. And that's really not a very good user experience, because the data will not be, it will be just discarded if you use the existing link to an existing account or contact there. And it also just shows unnecessary data entry options for the user that should, of course, be eliminated to make it more streamlined the form's usability. So what we can actually do here with a no-code approach for customization is that we should add these existing fields that are already there on the lead form in the BPF, these links to the existing account and existing contact, and add them into the form in the same place where we have the data entry fields usually for these leads and lead and account information. And then we should attach a business rule to those fields and say that if a user populates the, for example, the existing account field, then hide away all the fields that would be related to the creation of a new account record. And finally, to make it even nicer, the user experience is that we can then display a quick view form there on the lead form and show that actually this is the account that you are linking the record to. So just to kind of confirm it to the user that you are linking it with the right account record, for example. So in practice, the use case would be then that when a user is creating a new lead record, they would link it to an existing account record, and right after that, the business rule would kick in there in real time on the client side and would hide away all the account fields for entering details onto the lead itself. And the quick view form would then immediately also populate with the summary of the chosen account there. And why this is really important here for this scenario is that this actually also provides a good verification of how the success of this our custom lead qualification process then actually takes place, because then the user will see in real time that, okay, these new records were created as a result of me clicking on that qualify influencer button on the form there. So if we think about then how the form should be designed, the lead form, then there's a few things we need to do to make this then make it the user experience in line with the planned process there. So first of all, of course, we should have then the lead type selector there. So whether it should be, is it an influencer or a new prospect? So should we actually create a new opportunity record from this or not? And then as mentioned, we should drag the existing account and contact lookup fields into the form as well. So here I've actually created these custom sections on the left side for company information and contact person information, and there's the selection there for the existing accounts and contact record and so on. And then on the right side, I have the quick view form that will then show the summary of those selected existing records if they exist, so if there is data in those fields over there. So the business rules, this is it's a new feature in 2013 version of CRM. So they allow us to then build these kind of things that previously used to require form scripts. We can now do them just by defining these in the customization UI of CRM. So we should create 2 of these rules and add them onto the lead form. And the condition here would be that, for example, in this version of the hide lead contact fields for existing contact. So the condition should there be that if the parent contact to look up for lead contains any data, then we should hide all the fields that would be related to the creation of a brand new contact record there. And the same goes then for also the account record. So if there's data in field X, then hide all these fields Y, Z, and so on. And yeah, actually, I could now then show this from a live system how the system would then work in a CRM environment. So you should be seeing my screen right now, and I'm here working with in the lead view, and let's go and add a new lead record into CRM. So seeing how this process operates for the end user. So let's go and say that this is a new influencer for Wow Architects. So that's company that I'm using here. And now I have the selection here that I can define that actually this is an influencer and not a new prospect there. So pay attention to the BPF, so process flow here in the top, because now when I select the influencer there, then you'll notice that actually the stages change it, and I now only have the stages that are leading me towards the creation of a new influencer, not the creation of a new opportunity record. So that already is an interactive feature that directly tells the user that they are going the right way in this process. Then as for selecting the linking this to existing records, like the accounts. So for example, if I want to link this to the Wow Architects account that already exists there, then once I populate this field, the lookup, then you'll notice that actually this quick view form there on the right, it immediately brought in the information about the account that I'm using now. So I can easily see that, okay, this actually is owned by myself, and they are a prospect. I can see the information and any other details that I've chosen to include in this quick view form right here. So, and then, but I can, of course, I could add a new person here. So let's say that I'm adding Jane Smith here as the person who will be the influencer, and maybe Jane is a marketing manager, and she's got a email like that. So I'll just save the record now and submit this lead there into the database. So now when I'm moving then on in the qualification of this lead, so I'll be using the standard BPF processes paradigm. So I'll be moving on to the next stage, and as we can see, we're going towards the Great Influencer stage right here. So now we see that we don't have the standard qualification information here. We only have the two custom motions that are now relevant for this process that we have designed. So as mentioned, I've done the feature here to link this into an existing opportunity record directly, this new influencer. So I can then actually, I'll go and select, here I have an existing opportunity, CRM online migration for this company, the Wow Architects. So I'll select that there. And actually already at that point, you'll see that also the quick view form here has been populated with details about that opportunity. So I can see that it's what are the details of that revenue, who's the owner, and so on. So again, very interactive and real-time updating of the user interface without us doing any scripts or other custom code development here, just by using the standard features of Dynamics CRM customization toolkit. And then finally, I should of course qualify this lead now to turn it into a contact. And I'm not going to use the button over here because that would create the opportunity always, because I cannot disable that feature. But if I use then the bit field here, so saying that clicking here, yes, then right away when the CRM will save the data, so either I autosave, or if I click down here on the save button, then you'll notice that actually the lead now has been locked, so it's qualified, and we don't get transferred into a new opportunity record because we didn't use a standard button. Instead, we now have a new contact record created for Jane Smith, and that's then linked to the opportunity, which we can also then access directly from this form right here. So we can easily drill down or click deeper into this record and see that actually here on the stakeholders list, we can see that Jane actually is now an influencer on this CRM online migration opportunity record. So that's kind of the end of the first scenario there. any questions regarding this particular feature before we move on to the next scenario?
Hey, Jukka. We have one question in right now asking, how do we convert an opportunity back to a lead? Is that possible out of the box?
Not out of the box, but there shouldn't really be any reason why you couldn't do that also with a similar kind of workflow. So the one thing that you would then have to do is you'd create a brand new lead, and then that would be attached to the new BPF. So once you would then kind of take that back from lead to opportunity, then you would have a new opportunity created there. But I think that you could easily use the workflows as well for building such a functionality with similar kind of effort as we've seen right here.
All right, another question. Can you disable the qualify button if you are creating an influencer?
I think you could. You would have to then modify the ribbon XML a bit, the definitions over there. But there's a great tool by CRM MVP Scott Durow called Ribbon Workbench, and I'm not sure if it's something that you can do directly without any scripts used there, but you should be able to conditionally hide buttons based on what the record is that you are in. So I think there should be, at least if you Google for Ribbon Workbench and Scott Durow's blog post, then he might actually have an option there or tutorial right away that you can then follow for making that happen.
All right. Christian asks, is this part of standard functionality of CRM?
What I'm showing here is built by the customization tools that you have in the CRM customization UI. So it's not something that you can just start using right away, but you can build it with the same, following the instructions that I have on this slide. So based on this tutorial, you could actually build it for yourself and not having to buy any additional products. All
right, and a couple of other folks are just asking how they might. One follow-up question: Do we need to create a business rule that works like this? I guess to make it work.
The business rules are sort of optional. So there, if you just want to enable the qualification of a lead without opportunity, then that doesn't really require the business rule, but it's part of sort of the kind of end user UI experience that I showed there, that it gives you the guides to the user better by disabling then fields that they shouldn't be using. So it's kind of an optional feature in this scenario that I built here. Okay, I guess we'll have to move on a bit because we're running maybe out of time. We still have a couple of scenarios to cover, so I'll actually move on to the next topic, and that is about the opportunity estimated revenue calculations. So that's another problem that I often see with CRM users is that it can actually be require lots of clicking if we want to use CRM natively for entering detailed information about what's the revenue from an opportunity. So using the opportunity product line items, and one reason here is that you'd pretty much need to have very detailed product and price information in the CRM product catalog available if you want to use those selections there. So it's not easy to then just case by case edit the pricing of opportunity line items, and also you cannot very easily do a feature where you'd have always a standard set of product line items that you always sell on a particular type of an opportunity. And one further pain point there also is that even though there's a nice editable grid available in the opportunity form for manipulating the opportunity product line item data, then it's not really very customizable. So as an example, this is how it looks by default. So you will always need to add all the line items into the opportunity there, and there's always the selection of whether it's an existing product or a write-in product. So only the existing products will reference the product catalog information. So that's also something you cannot easily or in a supportive way disable the selection there. And also then overriding the pricing there, it's not something you can easily do in the editable grid there. So you'd have to then open the actual detail line items and do further configurations there. And in general, this often isn't really the kind of experience that people would want to have if they are selling a standardized service that always has a certain number of components in a typical opportunity. And that's why the solution that I'm showing you here now is built on a different kind of model. So with the 2015 calculated fields, we can actually quite easily add these or the revenue component fields directly onto the opportunity entity itself without using any of these line item records there. And we can then build the calculations ourselves, so combining revenue from all of these fields that contain data. And we can also then use workflows to also ensure that the standard fields for estimated revenue are kept in line with what we use in the custom fields, with the custom calculated fields. So I've built a scenario where we are actually doing selling a consulting service. Could be like, for example, CRM implementations. And in this scenario, the revenue is made up of these three components. So there's the consulting revenue. So that's made up of the number of hours spent, then the price per hour, so the rate per hour value, and then the total revenue from consulting would of course be hours times the rate there. Then there's another component in this kind of a opportunity for the licenses, software licenses, and in that we would be calculating the number of users, the number of months, entering the data for those variables, and then also the license cost per month, and then the total revenue from the licenses would be users times months times the rate. So pretty straightforward calculations. And the final component would then be the other costs, so any miscellaneous euros or dollars or whatever you want to add on top of the estimated revenue total there for the opportunity. And then the final calculated field would be the total amount, so that would then just sum up the data from all the previous fields there. So this is kind of a scenario that has been previously also done in certain kinds of CRM deployments, but it always required then either scripts on the opportunity form or then plugin development for doing the calculations on the server side. But with the CRM 2015 features, we can now actually use the calculated fields and build all of this without any custom code. So there's a brand new field type available in the CRM 2015 customization UI. So here I'm looking at the solution, the demo where I actually have built all these features, and we can see that there are two types of fields included now for this in this opportunity entity. So there's the standard simple type fields. So those are the ones that you had already in previous versions. But now there's also the calculated field version. That's the new type for CRM 2015 version only. And the way that you then define those calculated fields is that once you are adding a new field there, so for example, this licenses total field, then in the field definition, you have the option there for selecting the field type. So once we click on that and select that it's going to be a calculated field, then we can click on the edit button there, and we'll be presented by a calculated field definition editor that's similar to the business rule editor that we saw already on the previous scenario there. So that actually allows us to determine two things, so both the condition under which we are performing the calculations and then the actual calculation itself. So here in this example, I'm saying that this is the licenses total, so all the previous fields, so the number of end users, number of months, and then also the rate of how much does the license cost per user per month, then all those components need to be filled there. And if that criteria is met, then we are then calculating the value for this licenses total field. And we can do it from the editor with a nice sort of an IntelliSense way of building the formula there. So just in a plain language, I select the fields, add the plus or other signs there for the arithmetics, and then define that this should always be the value of those fields. And then CRM will take care of the rest, so it will then update the fields on the form. So in our scenario, again, I've done some customization for the opportunity form here. So the layout is a bit different from the standard opportunity form. So in this layout, I've actually replaced the usual social pane that's in the middle of the form and using this my custom revenue fields here instead. So I have a section here for the consulting fields, then for the license fields, then for the other revenue, and then finally the total amount of what these make up in the opportunity. And if you look at it from in the end user UI then, so this would be how it looks to the user. So when they are entering data for the opportunity, so all these fields that they fill there, so here we have 40 hours and 145 euros per hour, which then totals 5,800 euros. So all these logged fields will actually then be calculated in real time by CRM once the user saves the data into CRM. So I'll show that also from the live UI in a bit, but I just wanted to add one more note here that actually we still need to take care about the estimated revenue field, because that's how most companies then report their sales pipeline. So we should actually also make sure that there's also a value in that field, that we get a good pipeline visualization from our opportunities. And actually to do that, then one option for us would be to try and use the business rules that we saw there earlier on to populate the value on the form there, so perform this kind of client-side real-time updating of the data. But actually there's a limitation here that you can business rules cannot reference these new calculated fields. So we don't have the option of this the total cost field. Our custom calculated field does not appear here in the business rule editor. So that's not a feature that we can use, unfortunately, for updating the estimated revenue field. But if you think about then the other tools available, so there's of course the workflows. And the good thing is that in workflows we can grab the values from those calculated fields. So we cannot do it on the form and on the client side, but we can do it on the server side with these workflows. So what we actually want to do is that we'll just add one more workflow here that will then be triggered whenever one of these fields affecting the total cost will be updated, and then whenever the record is saved, then the actual step in the workflow will be that it will just copy the value of the total field into the estimated revenue field as shown there in the bottom of the screen there. So a very simple workflow that will then take care of updating the actual value in the UI. So I could again jump to the my live environment, and let's go and look at this opportunity. So for example, here I'm now with the CRM migration opportunity that we recently qualified this new influencer for. So for example, here I can see that we have estimated this is going to be 150 hours, and the rate will be 149 euros. So let's say that actually I'll reevaluate this and it's going to be only 120 hours. So once I save the record, so now it's 22,350 euros. Once I save it, then we'll see that it actually drops to 17,880 euros. So very nice, almost real-time calculation there. So it's not exactly like a form script, so it doesn't happen in real time once I tab away from the field. So you always do need to save the record there, but still pretty good experience compared to the fact that if I would be adding these different line items one by one, then that would be actually quite a lot more clicking and work for me to build up this kind of a proposal template for myself. So for example, if I then add users here, say that there are 50 users and they actually want it for 24 months, and if I save it, then that will again increase the total here, give me the total amount from calculated field, and then the workflow will actually update it also into the estimated revenue field there. So that was the scenario number 2 about these calculated fields. Any questions about this scenario before we move to the final scenario about the pipeline development demo?
A couple questions that come in. Let's see what we have time for here. So, are there any limits on the number of fields to calculate? Can I add 10 fields together?
I think you can easily add 10. There was some limitations, so probably not an infinite amount. So if you have a very complex calculations there, then it's good to check those limits from the SDK documentation. So in a scenario like this where there's like 20 fields, then no problems. But if there's lots of dependencies, then there could be some performance issues. Why Microsoft has then limited the number of fields that you can have here in a calculated format. But for example, here we only have like only 4 of my fields actually were calculated, or actually only 3 in this scenario. So that should leave you with then quite a number of fields to work with.
Okay, a question on calculated fields, two-part question. Are they, in 2015, can they be displayed in a list view, and are they available for types other than opportunities?
Yes, they are available for, I think, almost any entity where you can add fields, and they are standard fields in a way that you can also then show them in the list views and use them in the charts. So they are not, as far as I remember correctly, they are not kind of committed to the database, so they are kind of calculated in real time there once the data is retrieved. So they should always be using the latest data available on the records.
One more question.
Sure.
Can we set standard values in the rates field, or is it dynamic in nature?
Well, we could, for example, in the 2015 business rules, there's the option for a default value. So I think that you probably could use that to populate the fields. So based on, for example, what type of a project it is would be. So if you had like standard rates for different types of projects, or we could then have even more complex business rules. So looking at other variables there, and then based on the project type, there would be different defaults for the values. So I haven't experimented with that particular scenario myself, but I think it should be supported without any custom code needed. Okay, I think we'll have to push forward, so I have time to show the final scenario here, which is going to be about pipeline development. And I can stay around for longer than to answer questions if we go more than an hour here, so don't worry about then getting your questions answered. So the final scenario that we are looking at is revolves around this problem that CRM is very good for showing you the current status of the sales pipeline. You can easily chart it based on the opportunity sales stage, show the funnels and so on. And you can also then get the definitive data about the won or lost opportunities. So when they are closed as inactive, then they will always remain there, and you can perform then analysis on the closure rates and so on. But what you cannot do with this data is to project the previous size of the pipeline. So we cannot go back and look at what was the size of the pipeline in a previous point in time. And that would actually quite often be interesting information for the sales manager to see. So how is the pipeline actually developing? So is it bigger now than it was 1 week ago, or how much are there, how many opportunities in each sales stage? And if you look at the standard features, then that's not really something that you can capture from this data model by default. So you'd have to either export this into Excel or take screenshots and then compare those documents outside of CRM, and that's not really a very good solution that I'd like to propose to any CRM users, because they would have to keep living with some other Excel files. So what I've actually come up with is a lightweight solution for not building a big data warehouse that would then store those historical data, but rather manage that in CRM with this combination of the no-code features available there. And the way that I've actually built this is that I've added a custom entity called process stage there. So there's actually an entity and records for each of the sales process stages representing them in CRM. And on these records, I've then added Rollup fields that will then collect data about the related opportunities. So for example, the number of opportunities in each stage, and also then the total revenue from those opportunities, for example, in stage develop or stage qualify and so on. And to actually capture this data in CRM, then in this scenario, I have a custom entity called Snapshot there. So that's actually where I will then store the data about these Rollup fields that CRM calculates, and I will actually do the custom workflow that will then store data on a weekly level onto these snapshot records. And this will then actually give me the opportunity to visualize the progress of the pipeline, so how it has been evolving over time. And the architecture of the solution is like this. So I have with the process stage entity, I've connected that with my opportunities. So there's a custom relationship between those two records, And the CRM rollup fields, the feature in 2015 version, they actually take care of the calculation automatically. So once I add them there on the process stage record, then they are automatically able to calculate the number of opportunities that are related to that stage record. But then actually to capture the progress, so the historical data, then I'll need to use a workflow to then copy the data from that into snapshots that are in this scenario taken once every week. And then from there I can build a chart that will show then that per each stage how much revenue there is and how many opportunities and other variables. But that's the scenario that I'll show you right here. So as mentioned, I've added 2 custom entities. I won't go into the details of adding those here, but I'll just describe the kind of use cases for them. So the process stage entity is, as mentioned, that's connected to the opportunities, and that will contain the rollup fields for the opportunity count and the estimated revenue sum. And the snapshot is then just for storing the old values there, so copying the data from the stage entity. And again, looking at the new features, so we've seen the business rule editor and then the calculated field editor. So the rollup field editor is also very similar to those features. So I have the option here to select that when I'm now on the process stage entity, then I can look for data from a child entity. So in this case, it's the related opportunities that are in this stage. And I can set a filter that I only want to look at the open opportunities, since I do have historical data about the closed ones already. And then I can define that what's going to be the aggregation. So here I use 2 calculations. So there's the sum of estimated revenue from those related opportunities, and then there's the count of opportunities. So how many cases do I have in each stage of the sales process? So that's how I capture the data onto those process stage record. And this actually also, I've added a workflow that will then run whenever the BPF process stage changes. So that will then update the field, the custom field that I have there on the form on the left side. So again, that's just a small workflow that I can do to make sure that users don't have to then manually update the process stage lookup field values there. The system can do it for them. But this is then the actual process stage data. So what will I capture onto this custom entities? So there's 1 per each of the stage categories. So I use the same categories as the BPF does there. And then I have the rollup fields there on the form. So there's the opportunity count, and on the right side there's the estimated revenue. And those actually come from the related opportunities that I can then show on this process stage form as well. So I can see that where do these figures come from, and I can also show the timestamp for when they were last updated, this information there. But then the real fun part here, so the scheduling, the snapshotting. So this is actually something where I use a piece that wasn't, it does have some custom code, but it's open source. It's from a CRM developer or architect called Lucas Alexander, and it's available on this address that you see there below. So I've created a short URL for bit.ly on CRM Shed WF, so CRM scheduled workflow. And it's actually just a 1 step in a custom workflow activity, and that allows us to very conveniently schedule the running of a single workflow on a particular entity at an interval that we define there. So whenever it contains a timeout there, so whenever the next run date comes up, it will perform a query of records, and then it will start the actual business workflow for those records based on the schedule there. And the way you configure it is there's also 1 custom entity that comes with a solution from Lucas, so you don't have to worry about this. But basically, I define here that what's the workflow that I want to run on a scheduled basis, when should I run it, and then for which records. And on the bottom left there, you see that actually there's lots of scary code there, but that's the fetch XML query that defines that, okay, which records will we be running the workflow on. And the way that you get it actually is something that doesn't require any custom code, luckily. So we need to get the fetch XML criteria from somewhere for the scheduled processes, and that's going to be then for all our process stage records. So those qualify below and so on, those records that we saw earlier on. And then we need the one workflow that will actually then copy the data into a snapshot record there. So I'll just show you how to then, so you can grab the query filter from advanced files, so you don't have to actually type in the XML code yourself, luckily. And then also the workflow that I'm running here, I'll just quickly skip through it. So we just take a copy of each stage there and create a new snapshot record there. And then that's basically it. So it will create every week in my schedule, there's going to be one record per each stage there, and it will show the amount of revenue at that time that was in that stage and the number of opportunities. So that's all the data the snapshot contains, and that actually then allows me to build very nice visualizations of the pipeline development. So I can show the snapshot data here, group it by sales stage and per week, and then show that, okay, actually here we see that this is the amount of revenue on the left side that's been in the pipeline, and then there's on the right side we have a graph about the opportunity count. So I will ultimately get one of those each week as the workflow runs them in the background, and it will just take care of the CRM will count the Rollup fields for me, and then the custom workflow will take care of the storing snapshots, and they will then be presented on this dashboard right here. So that was actually a very quick walkthrough of through the final scenario there, but we've used the hour now, but also we reached the end of the slides here. So I just wanted to conclude that, again, I'll be sharing all these materials on my blog. So survivingcrm.com is the place to keep an eye on. So will be doing blog posts about the details in this, how to build these solutions there. And as mentioned, then there will be a recording of this live demo available on YouTube and also on msdynamicsworld.com very shortly after Jason has published that. So at this point, I want to say a big thank you for attending this webcast, and I'll be ready to stay around for any questions you have as long as there are. So don't worry about then exceeding this 1 hour time slot that we had for this webcast. So thank you, and now if you have questions, then feel free to ask as much as you want.
All right, great. And we do have several questions that are coming. Probably the one that's kind of come up the most throughout the session here, Jukka, is if people can actually get access to the slides themselves as well. Do you want to provide your email address, or do you want to share it some other way?
Sure. So I actually will be making these. I'll be doing 3 blog posts about each scenario there that will then contain these slides and some other details. So there will be then detailed steps about how to create, for example, the pipeline snapshots. So that's going to be the way that I'll be making them available in the next couple of weeks' time. So keep an eye on the blog there for that content.
All right. Awesome. A lot of just positive comments coming in about the content today. I think people really enjoyed it. A few other questions that have come in. Can calculated fields be summed in a Rollup field?
That's a good question that I actually cannot remember right now. So there's a number of limitations related to these kind of features. And for example, one thing that you cannot do is that you cannot, for example, use those Rollup field values easily in or calculated fields. I think you couldn't. No, sorry, Rollup fields you cannot use in the workflow. There's actually one blog post that I posted about this workaround where I used the same tool for the scheduled workflows. So the solution from Lucas Alexander. So that was about then capturing this scenario where I summarized the number of let's say clicks that people have made on a website that's been tracked. So that my blog posts contain also some of these gotchas and limitations about Rollup fields in particular that you should be aware of. So there's also links to the official documentation from Microsoft that contains then the details about limitations around the number of fields and whether you can reference them in workflows and business rules. So it's definitely important to pay attention to those details before you start designing a solution, because then you might run into a situation where you see that actually this field that I built now is not available in this other process that I want to be using for. So in a complex scenario where you combine many of these tools together, then you shouldn't really just assume that they are standard fields like in CRM, because they actually are very different than the simple fields in the previous versions of CRM.
Okay. Can we, maybe a related question here, can we sum up revenue from multiple parts records tied to an opportunity?
Yes, so that would then be, you'll be using the roll-up feature. So it's a bit like the calculated fields, but instead of counting data on the same records, you can then look for the child records. So in an example here, when I built the, I'll actually go back in my slides a bit. So I'll show that an example here, I have the process stage record, and then there are child opportunities there. And I can now count only these records into this field of the process stage record there. So actually in this definition, we have the filters there. So I could set that only count or sum the records that are of meet the filter criteria in this roll-up field definition. So that would be the feature you could then use for that kind of calculations from different entity records.
Okay, a couple more questions here. Let me just mention for people who are departing, please do look for the survey that pops up at the end. It's just a couple questions, and we really appreciate the feedback on how the session went. Our speakers also really like to get that feedback as well for the future. Can we use a customized field dependent on the standard rates to set a set to compute for the rate per hour field to standardize the rates? I'm not sure if
sorry, I think I missed the question. It was such a long. Can you repeat it?
So let me see if okay. Can we use a customized field dependent on standard rates depending on standard rates to compute for the rate per hour field in order to standardize the rates?
So you would then also use that as a calculated field. I think there shouldn't be a problem as such, because in my example there for those, let me actually go back again in the slides. I'll go to that part of the second scenario. So here I'm calculating this, or many of these fields are then also summing other calculated fields. So for example, the very final total that I have here, so that sums up also the other calculated fields. So there should be the opportunity to reference other complex fields as well in those calculations. So if you have then, if you have the logic on some other fields that are on the same entity there, then that should be doable. But again, then if you are using data from some other related records and using roll-up fields for bringing that available, then one thing to keep there in mind is that roll-up fields by default are not real-time, so they are calculated only every half an hour, whereas these calculated fields are updated in real-time, so they are always then updated when the data is retrieved from CRM. So whenever you open a form or whenever you view the records on a view, then they will show the latest data, but roll-up fields are only updated every 30 minutes. Unless you then use another custom workflow activity. So that's also something I've mentioned in one of my blog articles. So there's a workaround. There's a great open source edition again by CRM MVP Demian. So he's made available this workflow tools extension. So there you can then force the recalculation of these roll-up fields to be basically happening in real time by using that extension to the workflow options there. So that's just may not be relevant to that scenario, but it's another thing to keep in mind here, that there's a number of gotchas here that you should be aware of, that it's not necessarily exactly equal to maybe some current implementation that you may have done based on form scripts or plugins. So there might be some limitations, for example, based on when those fields update. So as mentioned, with the calculated fields, they don't update the very moment I tab away from the field. Instead, I have to save the record into database, and then they update it. So it can be different if you are replacing existing functionality from older version with these no-code approaches in a newer version of CRM.
Okay, final question here. Can you please show again how to perform qualification process change when you change parameters of a lead?
Okay, so that would be the branching feature. Yes, so I'll go to that slide there. There's plenty of these slides here. Sorry about that, but kind of wanted to have the whole end-to-end story here. So The way that the process changes is actually built into the definition of the business process flow here. And when I'm adding the branches, then all the conditions that I have available here, they have to be a field that I have populated in a previous stage here. So actually I have to have this custom lead type field here available in order for me, I have to have it in the previous stage there for it to be available as a branching option here later on in the BPF. So when I created the new lead there and saved the record with the lead type influencer, then at that time the BPF then updated in real time to follow this branch. So that was how the changing takes place. So that doesn't really require any workflows or business rules. It's kind of built-in features of the BPF functionality here.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up the Q&A portion here. So well, we can start wrapping up the event. Jukka, thanks so much for taking the time today for putting together such a great presentation and so much information for our audience.
Great. Thank you for having me, and hope you got some ideas from this content. And again, a reminder, so keep an eye on my blog for getting the details about each of these scenarios, and also place for asking questions and comments probably is going to be the most logical in those blog posts that will be published in the next couple of weeks, promised.
All right, we'll definitely look out for that. Please do look out for the survey when you leave here today. Thanks again, and that concludes today's event.